Oh, hello. Welcome to my library. I'm your data advocate, and today we're going to talk about 5 topics how automation will revolutionize finance. Are you ready? Then let's go. Imagine this. You're working in a finance department and you feel that slowly but surely you are falling behind. You have lots of Excel forms, Excel worksheets, manual copy and paste data, stuff sent around by email, which is basically a black box. Do you know that situation? Does that sound familiar to you? In today's video, I'm going to talk about 5 reasons why you should embrace automation and how to apply it to overcome that mess. The first reason is improved efficiency. If you're dealing with a lot of spreadsheet work these days and you're somehow living in Excel hell, you're going to love automation. Because in Excel, you basically start every table all over again next month, next week, next day. But with automation tools, for example, like the NIME Analytics platform, you build processes instead of tables. And these processes can be automated. This gives you greater accuracy, less errors, and a much better documentation, which also lifts the weight of having had monopolies from your finance department. There are a lot of teams that probably would benefit from that. For example, your sales operations teams. Well, one of the problems that you have in Excel is probably that you have miscalculations. When it comes, for example, to forecasting quality, it is extremely important that your forecasts are accurate. You simply cannot afford to be off by 100, 200 or even 500k. Or think about payroll. Can you imagine the uproar that would happen if a salary was paid out that was not correct? Or accounting, where you always have to make sure that accounts and ledgers equal out to each other. So improved efficiency is really key here, and along with the documentation that might not seem to be so important, but that is the key to that improved efficiency, because you know exactly where to look at and exactly what to do. For example, if you use a visual analytics platform like NIME, you know for every node where to look. And if you don't understand what I'm talking about when I talk about NIME or nodes, have a look at this video here, where I give you an introduction to NIME and where you build your first workflow in less than an hour. Reason number 2, cost reduction. We just talked about errors, and errors actually are costly, because if you need to spend more time to correct errors, that will cost you, your department and your company money, a lot of money. Another cost factor you might want to look at is labor cost. If you have people that spend 30 to 40% of their time correcting errors, doing manual work in spreadsheets, probably you're thinking about hiring a new employee to fill up that capacity so you finally can fulfill the task that you were originally engaged for. If you use automation tools, you can streamline all these processes. You can make them smarter, you can make them leaner, so that the experts that you already have can really focus on the core of their work, on the expert work, instead of doing copy and paste stuff. And if you're now thinking that all these automation tools are costly and need a heavy investment, the NIME Analytics platform that I would vote for as a first automation tool is open source, so it's free. But yes, you of course have to invest time to learn that new tool, but that is what this channel here is for, right? Reason number 3 is increased accuracy. I already touched on the point of things like forecasting or budgeting. You don't want to run into a situation where you have the wrong numbers forecasted to your C-level executives and then you need to justify why those were wrong. Usually these days, we're in 2023, these executives and senior managers don't accept an excuse anymore that says, yeah, there was a rounding error in Excel. So you need to make sure that your processes are stable, and automation is the way to get there. And then you'll also find more accurate numbers. A specific advantage of analytics tools is that they usually execute the processes stepwise. So after each step, you can have a look if the result is what you expected or not. They do not act like a black box where you put your numbers in and somehow magically they come out hopefully right at the end. No, with automation tools, you look at every single step and see, hey, can that be, is that what is expected? And that gives you also greater security. This is also important for finance departments if you look at things like risk management. You don't want your risk KPIs to rise just because something was miscalculated. And with the approach that I just described, stepwise look into the results and evaluating can that be, and then run the automation at the end once you're ready for it, this will have a heavy impact on your bottom line in risk management, in procurement, in sales operations, in forecasting, in all these core finance tasks. The fourth reason that I want to talk about is faster processing. Yes, of course, you need to build these workflows, you need to build these automations, and that's the right way to do, by the way, guys. Don't hand it off to someone else and you get it back and then you still don't understand what happens there. That is not an advantage. Do it yourself, learn the tools. KNIME, that I would suggest, is super visual. You don't need to learn any programming language or anything. You just basically can click together your automations. Once you have done this, usually the automation just runs at the click of a button. So you build your automation once and then run it multiple times. And this brings me basically to my fifth point: enhanced data analysis. If you start with automation, you have the advantage that you learn the tool along the way. And if you use a very visual tool like the KNIME Analytics platform, it's very easy. If you can understand a traffic light, you can understand KNIME. And the interesting part here is really the moment when the magic happens, when you use your newly acquired knowledge and start to look at things like, hey, wait a minute, is that and that and that possible in KNIME? Let me give you an example of what I mean by that. For example, when I was in procurement, we did annual orders. So at the beginning of our fiscal year, we ordered for the whole year, and then we just called off of these orders. And these purchase orders that we created were meant to last for a whole year. However, more often than not, they were used up earlier than 12 months, which always caused a lot of troubles, a lot of additional processes to be executed where you did not expect it and you couldn't plan for that. So what we did basically, we used the KNIME Analytics platform to evaluate our PBO data, our purchase data, to see, hey, is it the patterns that we already know? For example, it's always Joe from marketing. Or is it something else that we just can't see? Can the machine, through an easy-to-use algorithm, probably identify new patterns? And you know what? It identified something, and the next annual purchase order process was so much easier because we immediately talked to them on eye level. We described the situation, said, hey, our experience and our numbers show XYZ. Probably we want to increase that purchase order by 20% so we don't have to execute these special processes throughout the year. And that was an insight that was really helpful for us. But of course, there are other insights as well. Talking about marketing, just grouping, for example, customers in age groups, or trying to come up with some additional patterns to see, for example, if people that sign up to our newsletter are more willing to buy than people that don't, and all this kind of stuff. This is all possible besides, or I better should say, in addition to the automation. So there you have it, the 5 reasons why you should embrace automation tools like KNIME. Improved efficiency, cost reduction, greater accuracy, faster processing, and enhanced data analytics. Let me know in the comments down below, are you in the automation camp or not? If you're in the automation camp, make sure that you write automate in the comments down below or old school. I'm really interested to see how you approach these topics. And if you now want to learn more about KNIME and probably want to see why I personally think that Microsoft Excel is a tool of the past, you might want to have a look at this video here. And I also introduce you to your first usage of KNIME, starting completely from zero if you look at this video here. Thank you and see you next time.